We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul, and I have the pleasure of being here with Mr. John McBride, who's the lead tech at Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Now, John, you've had a lot of experience in doing search and rescue missions in the past and just recently, right?
That's correct. We've my personal experience with a lot of the search and rescue stuff is just working with local law enforcement, not any specific search and rescue teams, but mostly local law enforcement, sheriff's departments. We've even done support with on side with a helicopter. There's only one, unfortunately, helicopter in the state of Utah with access to be able to do any search and rescue missions. So it's pretty viable to use a drone in this case, and actually adding a thermal camera to that is very helpful. So.
Yes, and now let me ask you a question. How many times have you been using thermal cameras in your search and rescue missions?
So far, I've only done it once with the thermal camera because of the early editions of the View. Being able to get those onto ships has always been kind of a tough one. It's not impossible, but it works.
Well, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, which was the question that we got in this show, which is what is the best drone for search and rescue? And there's a lot of differences in thermal technology from the new DJI XT, which we're going to talk about today, and we'll talk about the View, and we'll talk about the Tau 2, that's TAU number 2, the Tau 2 camera from FLIR. Now, you're a dealer for FLIR, right? What is your relationship with them? Because I see you teaching all the time on these thermal cameras and the thermal gimbals and really packages that you've set up.
Well, FLIR themselves has the ability. They have people that do hobby drones, if you will, and there's some part of their staff that do that. So the initial idea was to try to come up with a product that was an easy solution, add to a drone, didn't matter what it was, whether it was a multi-rotor, a helicopter, a fixed wing, it didn't really matter. They wanted to come up with something small, easy to use, output video, thermal running, and being able to basically outfit that. Well, they have a crew there that has had a little bit of experience with that, but at the same time, they needed an expert in the UAV portion. So they had asked if you know, a couple of different companies to take a look at it, but I've just been doing drones for so long that it kind of just fell into that. Now, our parent company actually does distribution to hobby shops with the FLIR products, and that was very helpful to be able to get into that as well. So. Gotcha.
So now let's talk about, since you've had this relationship with FLIR, you've been able to come up with these packages like the Tau 2 on a gimbal on the back of an Inspire 1. Which hopefully we'll get to show here on the podcast. I really love that setup because you've got the dual, you've got the visual, the EO, and you've got thermal, which you could, overlay if you want to, but you can also utilize the dual pictures to get a lot more information out of that setup. That's one setup I love that you have, and hopefully one day we can get our hands on one, but if we were to compare, say, a setup like that where we're using the Inspire 1 and your gimbaled setup on the back of it with the visual camera versus a DJI XT, what are the differences that people would see in that technology and that capability?
Well, if we go back to what the FLIR View Pro, and that's basically what I use on the back. So instead of it being a TAO, as you referred to, the TAO is capable of doing thermography, basically radiometric data that is recorded on screen and live. The View or View Pro, that is a specific design that kind of eliminates the radiometric data, but makes a great choice for SAR simply because of cost, and that's a huge one. When you don't include the radiometric data, it doesn't cost as much for the sensor to be applicable for that. So
for those who don't understand radiometric, would you explain what radiometric is just real quick?
Sure. Everything, as we look into thermal itself, everything radiates a temperature is what we would say, but it's basically radiating a measurable amount of heat. So the camera itself, every pixel can pick up those differences, and the way that we're able to show it, just like on a daytime camera, we have to have visible light to show what a daytime camera can see. If we flip it to be able to see radiance of heat, it is then displayed in a way that shows the variances in that heat. And radiometric specifically is cataloging or having metadata included with an image that shows every pixel a temperature. So there is unfortunately, a lot of I don't know, how can you say, the best way to say it is that there's a lot of ways that you can mess up the temperature sensing, because there's things that reflect heat, there's things that radiate heat. You could be trying to do an inspection. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you can do it in an inspection, and you could be looking at a piece of metal that is reflecting 100 degrees of heat, but the metal itself is only 7 degrees on the surface temperature. So what the camera could read is actually 100 degrees because it's reflecting its outside heat from it. So, taking that, basically having the data and having the data available to analyze and show temperature is radiometric, is the best way.
Now, is there a direct correlation between radiometric thermography and color? I mean, is that something, because that's something I hear a lot in the industry when people say, "Oh, it's radiometric," that means it's color.
Not specifically. Yeah, so let's clear that one up. I get that question a lot. So I do have a group that I created on Facebook that is kind of isolates the product of the FLIR View and the FLIR View Pro. Basically, the color palettes are a representation of the variations in the scene that the camera sees. So just like and I use color cameras quite often, just like you can see green in a EO camera, or you can see red, or you can see that reflectance of that is obviously red popping through the camera. Well, the variations of heat from the coldest thing in the scene, to the warmest thing in the scene, throws a gradient of color in there for your visual to see. So it doesn't mean that because it's glowing white hot or red means that it's, the temperature of the sun at all. It just means that by looking at that scene, the camera sees that scene, the hottest thing in the scene is what is glowing there. So if that makes sense.
Let me ask you this, John. Which camera is the DJI XT using? Which FLIR camera is it using? Is that the View Pro itself? Is that the same camera?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Now, what type of resolution are we going to get out of that camera? And another question that we've had come in is, can we use the DJI XT camera for inspections? Because I know yesterday you and I were talking on the phone, and I said, I really want people to understand the difference between search and rescue thermography and, I call it real thermography, where you're actually doing inspections and you're talking about the ability of the building to have structural integrity, which is a very serious inspection to be completing. So what can we use this XT camera for? Help us out on that.
Okay, well, let's go to the resolution portion first. Okay. The first question, yeah. So the resolution is pretty important. We are able to. FLIR basically makes two main resolutions in the majority of their cameras. Probably 90% of all of the cameras FLIR makes are 336, and that's 336 resolution. You see 336 pixels across to 640 pixel. Now, some people are used to 720, 1080, we get up into 4K, they're like, holy crap, that's like crap. How can you see anything at 640 or 336 or whatever those numbers are? Well, because we're looking at a thermal image and not doing anything else, I mean, it really pops. So the field of view changes with the lenses that you can choose. The resolution is always the same. But the nice thing about the XT as we transfer into that is that you do have both of those resolutions available. Cost changes just a bit between those two, so you're talking a 336 being, $6,000 and a 640 being $10,000 ish. So that being able to, it's like holy.
It's
crap.
around 10,000 somewhere.
So if we were looking, if you actually had seen my screen here, I do have an XT mounted on an Inspire here, and
cool.
that is outputting via the app, which is again a very helpful and awesome thing that DJI has incorporated the functions of the XT camera into the operation of the Inspire. As
Which
we
is
go
really
into
cool.
as we go into the thermal side or the inspection side, that would be the most important thing here to remember is that they're still working on the recorded radiometric data, but there is visible temperature available. So
interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that I really like about the DJI XT is that as I was watching your Facebook feed, you can change the color temperatures: white hot, black hot, green hot, blue hot, red hot.
Yeah.
But also, I like how for the first time ever, we've got full control of a thermal camera through the app or through the remote on the ground. I mean, I feel like that is a pretty far leap forward from what I've seen on other FLIR, anything FLIR really.
Well, the biggest, like I said, the thing is to try and to help with your viewers is to understand the difference between all of these different FLIR products, and that's really important. So some people will be, well, I don't need to justify myself buying a $10,000 XT camera. I don't even have an Inspire to start with. It's not going to work with any other products out there. That XT is specially designed for the Matrice and the Inspire. It's not made for anything else. The View Pro is capable of doing, adding that to pretty much any ship. And
you make a gimbal for that, right?
That is correct. So we engineered a gimbal that could be used as a do-it-yourself setup if you wanted to put it on any ship you wanted to, an S900, an S1000, even a modified Phantom if you need to. I think you saw the picture of that is just a modified Phantom. You've got a lot of options there with the View Pro, but again, the View is good for search and rescue application. It's not going to be. Let me go back to an inspection standpoint. When we go up onto the roof and look at something that's showing thermal, we can see if there's a water leak. We don't have to have temperature specifically showing us that is a problem, but what we see is the color variation as the water is evaporating off of the roof, right? So stuff where the water gets stuck underneath the roof, we can see a temperature variance there to show that water is trapped underneath as the water evaporates and cools off the roof faster in some places than other. So you don't necessarily need temperature for that, but you can still show a client or show somebody that you have that temperature difference, So there's certain times of day that's really going to work out. I know you're in New Mexico, and that's you're going to go out in the middle of the day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon where the sun is up at 100 degrees. Everything is going to look hot. There's not going to be everything. There's not going to be much variance in the temperature, but it must be much better to do it late at night or later in the evening. So,
gotcha. So, do you think that? Well, I guess that you could do the inspections with the XT then, but if you had the higher end XT, is that what I'm hearing?
The higher end XT, there's no difference in between the two, short of the resolution.
Resolution.
Yep. That is really the
Gotcha.
difference between the two. And there is a small price differences between a 640 9 hertz version, which is basically 9 frames per second, and then there's a difference in the 30 hertz version 640. But there is a price difference there of about $700, but still it's 10,000-ish, like we said. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, it seems like there's a lot going on in the thermal industry here, and that it's very different from the traditional camera setups that we're used to on drones. So let me ask you this. Well, with that being said, I know that you're coming here to Drone U in May to come do a class on this. Explain to people, how do you do search and rescue missions? How do you do thermal inspections? What type of cameras do you need for those thermal inspections? And we're really excited for that. But for a lot of people that want to do that training, that want to do search and rescue, what do you think is the best drone for search and rescue?
Well, currently, I will say it's most likely the Inspire. Hate to say that, but it is. There's some good things about the initial operation that DJI has come out with that makes it very simple to show, and I wouldn't call them uneducated, but we'll call them unexperienced people in the search and rescue family. They have a great amount of tools, and there's tons of them out there, and they have to be experts on all of them. Well, instead of learning how to fly a traditional RC airplane, traditional RC heli, we have an Inspire that is very easy to operate, very easy to show, not difficult at all. And so adding on the added on kit that we make, we've already moved a lot of those. People have been having great experience with those. A guy just called me today about counting deer in the middle of a field, specifically for conservation reasons. I mean, they were doing it all day yesterday, and it was just like we're dumbfounded on how well this works. And that is, again, the add-on unit, but they're using it.
And how much is that add-on unit? Because I've been wanting to get this for my Inspire, which you already know about. How much is the add-on unit for the 336 versus the 640?
Well, the kit itself will work with either camera. It doesn't matter which one you choose. So the kit is $830. It includes basically a black pearl, antennas, video transmitters, the kit, everything there is included. Add your camera to it, you could be $1,500 or so for a View, up to $3,700 for the View Pro at 640.
So anywhere from about 2,300 to about 5K area.
Yeah, you're pretty good at the math there. Yeah.
Cool. I'm not the bean counter either. That is not my job. I'm bad at that. So the fact that I even came remotely close is funny to me.
So so the kit itself is engineered to basically add on. And again, when you ask about the best drone, it probably has the best ability, can handle the winds the best. And this is just, again, from people that are giving me feedback on specific drones we make. Now, I love the Phantom series. I think it's been a great, fantastic since the P1 up to the P4 we have now. But
crazy.
Yeah, if people haven't figured out that the P3 and the P4 are now like your iPhone products. They're really hard to get into and mess with and change. And so we have a kit made for the P2, which is much easier to manipulate, change, and add the features that the FLIR View Pro offers to be able to control them. Very difficult with a P3 or a P4 because of the way it's engineered right now. So
now that package that you put on the Inspire, it kind of clips onto the back end of the Inspire. Is that kind of how it works? Or
pretty much. We have a plate that we remove off the back end. Everybody sees it. There's 4 little screws on the back end of the thing. I've seen clip-on types that have fallen off the bird, which I don't need to have happen with a $4,000 camera. So I basically engineered it to be able to use the already current 4 screws on the back end, remove that plate, you put on the kit, and screw that back down. It seems pretty rigid and runs really well with that setup, and can be used, the kit is pretty wide open to be able to even be used with a GoPro, so if you needed to. So
gotcha. Now, John, where could we find out more information on your gimbals and the products that you have? Where could we go?
Best place is RockyMountainUnmannedSystems.com. It's kind of a mouthful, but we also have a shortened version, RMUVA.com. So RockyMountainUnmannedSystems.com is usually the easiest. People mistake us and think that we're actually in Colorado, but we're in Salt Lake City, Utah. So
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, guys, if you're interested in John's cameras or John's setup, which I think is really the big deal here, I think it's the gimbal. It's the entire package that he puts together for you. John, I really want to appreciate for having you on. Do you think we've done a good enough job explaining, hey, if you're doing search and rescue, that's kind of a lower end thermal camera than if we were doing thermal inspections? Because I see so many people taking their Inspires up to power lines and doing power line inspections without understanding, coronal ejections, without understanding why you need to ferromagnetically protect the flight controller when flying near power lines.
And even power lines, let me just add on to that. There is most of the time with most power companies, they are going to require, and this is 3 people in Utah have exemptions to be able to do this. They are requiring a $10 million insurance package.
Wow.
Yeah, that the operator has to have a minimum of a $10 million liability insurance just in case. It's a just in case, of course, but that's a little bit more than just going and flying somebody's residential home or even doing thermal roof inspections. I mean, that is something to consider. So
true, but thermal roof inspections pay well, but I can imagine that, it just depends on the type of job,
absolutely.
I guess. So, well, John, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And guys, if you want to check out more of John's products, again, that's RockyMountainUnmannedSystems.com. John is going to be coming on to Drone U and teaching you guys how to do thermal setups, how to use the XT, the difference between the cameras, very specifically what can be used for which job. And we're really excited to have John on board.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All good.
We've got all kinds of things going on here. I'm sorry.
It's weird for me because I can't see you either. So I just hear all these things going on in the background. And I'm like, can you tell him to whisper?
Yeah, basically we still have a full call center going on here, and I apologize. We are in the transition of moving, so I just letting your listeners know. So
understand. Anyway, John, thank you so much for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it. We're so excited to see more from you. Excited to see you in May. And again, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Happy to help you.
That's going to do it for the show today. If you're wondering about the DJI XT, should you get one? Should you maybe get another FLIR camera? We are going to have that class, and we're going to really go over the details on how you can do these jobs if you are interested in it, or if you're just so interested in saving lives, you can learn how to do that from John McBride, because drones can be used for good. That's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul, and this is Ask Drone U.
We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.